Hi, Yoel.
Hey, how are you?
Fine, how are you?
Doing very well, thank you. Here we go, share. Tell me, Iran, do you see the presentation?
Yes, I can see the presentation.
Okay, perfect. How you doing, man?
I am fine. How are you?
Good. It's nice to see you face to face.
Yeah, you too.
Hi, how are you?
Hi, great. And you?
Very good, thank you. So, Iran, what's new?
I am working from home now. I found a new job, in between because I am in between jobs. So I am working. I don't know how to say this in English, but
Is it?
I am writing lessons for people who are participating in Zooms. For example, people who have disabilities and can't write or hear, so I write for them the lesson, and then they can read, and it makes their life easier.
Wow.
If you know what I mean.
I don't know of the service, but I mean, it's a great service. Really, really nice.
Yeah, it's very challenging. So now I am writing the lessons for people who are studying economics or physics and stuff like this. So I am enriching my knowledge.
Great.
What
So,
about
I have to say that I'm excited that the world in Israel is opening back up.
you? Yeah,
And,
yeah.
and now we can have social gatherings again. And can we go to the beach now? Is that allowed yet?
I think yes. I
I think
think
so too. I went for a jog the other day and I saw a bunch of people sitting on the sand and surfers. So I think they're pretty, I don't know if it's like official, but I think it's okay.
it's not official, but people decided, like everything in Israel, that it is official. So, so it's okay.
Very
So
good.
yes, you can go to the beach. Yes. By the way, I was looking for the terminology for what I am doing, and it says that it is transcribing.
Yeah, transcribing. Yeah,
Transcribing lessons. Yeah.
gotcha.
Yeah.
Gotcha. But to understand it a little bit better, it's for Zoom though. And so in other words, it's you're transcribing the audio that's going on for them.
Yes, exactly. I am transcribing the audio. Sometimes it's on live, so I need actually to be there when the lesson happens. And sometimes they send me the record, which is much easier because you can skip, some moments which are not important, and then it goes faster. But most of the time, I am at the lessons, yes.
Okay, very nice.
Yeah. So tomorrow we are going to the beach, I guess?
Man, I don't know about, yeah, maybe tomorrow. Maybe tomorrow after work. It's definitely an option for sure. At least at some point during the weekend, for sure. I'm gonna go for a swim.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
You
It's a
have
good
to.
idea.
Yeah, I think you have to. I think the beach is gonna be quite full this weekend.
Exactly. Just a second, I am going to the room because I am sitting in the living room and everybody is here watching their TV.
No problem.
So I don't want to interrupt them. So I will be with you in a second.
No worries, man.
יש לי זומים איך לחפש, איך לכתוב קורות חיים. אמריקאי שעשה עלייה והוא יועץ קריירה. הוא קואוצ'ר, הוא עסק באותו מקצוע שלי, נכון? לא. הוא עלה לפני שנה וחצי. הוא לישראל? כן, הוא גם פה שם. כן. אני מבינה כל מה שאתה אומר. איך אני מדבר? מה? כן, אני לא מדבר בחשש? לא, ממש לא. קוראים לו יואל, הוא נולד בארץ.
Eran,
Yes.
just so you know, if you're like you're on, like everyone can hear you, which is fine. Your conversation's fine, but just so you know.
אוקיי, אוקיי.
Hey, how are you? How's it going? Nice to see you. What do we have? Julie, where are you from?
Me? I'm from Brazil.
From Brazil?
Yeah.
Very nice. Where in Brazil?
The south.
Where, like, which area? Like what city?
It's in the south of Brazil. The city is called Porto Alegre. You probably haven't heard of it.
No, I'm sorry.
Yeah, no. It's not a touristy place.
All right, guys, just so you know, we're going to start at 8:05. All right, so we're just going to give some people 4 more minutes to show up, but I do want to respect your time, so we'll start at 8:05. Hey, how's it going? For those that are on camera, I do appreciate it. It is nice to be able to talk to faces instead of black screens. For those that are off camera, no worries. But if you do hop on camera, it is appreciated. It's nice to see your faces. And while we're waiting for those that are joining us, we're going to start in a few minutes, about 8:05. I'm going to share here, since we have some time. This is the Masa community Facebook page that you guys are welcome to check out and join if you're not a part of it yet, where we post a bunch of different events. And I suppose I might as well join the Masa career page as well.
Hi again.
Hey, Ran, good to see you again.
Yeah, haven't seen you for a long time.
It's been a while. So I just posted in the group chat the Masa community page. I don't know if you're already a part of that, but I'm putting that in there while we wait. We have a couple more minutes. And then this next link I'm sending is the Masa community career page. So on there we have, so those are 2 separate links. They look like one big one, but they're 2 separate links. And the Masa career page is where we post these workshops. And also we just have all sorts of different content related to careers. So you have those there, and I'll also mention them again at the end. So one more minute, folks, and we shall start.
Okay, I logged in. I clicked on the link that you have just sent, and I see that I am a friend of this group, so it's good.
Fantastic. Very good.
Yeah.
All right, guys. So we're going to go ahead and start. So welcome to the workshop for tips on an improved CV. Before we get started, just want to introduce myself. My name is Yoel or Yoel, depending on your pronunciation. I'm from the US, so my name my whole life has been Yoel. But then when I moved to Israel, it is now Yoel. I'm also from Colombian descent, so Yoel has also been my name for my whole life. And I moved to Israel about a year and a half ago, coming up just over a year and a half ago. And I do have a bit of a background in business development, video marketing, event production, as well as career coaching. And I'm also involved with Masa's career community and teach some leadership workshops and career workshops to Masa participants, mostly like internship participants. And so today's workshop is going to be about tips for an improved CV. And before we get started, I just want to mention that when it comes to CVs, you know, there are so many different types of CVs and so many different types of industries that the idea here was to give you guys universal insights that all of you can use. Because if I got too detailed and too technical, it might not serve everybody because there are specifications according to which type of industry you are in, and I will cover that. So the idea here is to give you guys universal insights and tips that have worked for me and that can apply to everybody, no matter your industry. The other thing that I want to mention is that, you know, I'm not a CV guru. I do know what I'm talking about when it comes to CVs, and everything on here has been approved by HR managers that I've had conversations with. It's all been approved by the head of the Masa career programming. So all the content you see on here is approved stuff. And the other thing that I also want to mention is just as far as the rhythm of this conversation goes, like, yes, I am leading the conversation, but please feel free to jump in at any time, ask questions, comments. Like if something doesn't make sense, if you want to talk a little bit more about something, please feel free to ask anytime. I'm happy to elaborate, happy to clarify. And the other thing I want to say is if there's a point where you guys have tips or strategies or insights that you've used, feel free to share those as well. You know, like I'm going to provide as much value as I can for you. But if there's something that I did not mention that you've had success with, feel free to jump in and say, hey, well, this has worked for me. And so I'd love to share it with the group, because at the end of the day, the point of this career community that we're building here with Masa is to help each other out. Like for you guys to help me, for me to help you, for each of you to help each other, and for all of us to help each other to get to where we want to go and to get to that next level in our profession. So with all of that said, then we can go ahead and get started. I just want to make a note that this presentation you can receive after the session. So, you know, if you don't want to take down everything that's written on here, no problem. I'm going to share my email at the end. And so feel free to send me an email at the end of the session saying, hey, Yoel, I would love the presentation, and I'm happy to share that with you. And like I said, jump in anytime if you have questions, or if I'm talking too fast, or if I went over something. So here are the topics we're going to be covering for today. We're going to be talking about formatting and organizing a CV. We're going to be talking about hard skills versus soft skills, what those are, and what's more important for a CV and how to use them. We're going to understand how to bring more meaning to a CV, meaning how do we actually make the content of our CV more meaningful. We're going to talk about uncovering skills you already have, because a lot of times people don't give themselves enough credit for the skills and abilities they already have, and they overlook some skills and abilities that they have. So it's to uncover what you guys already have within you. And customization, which is just talking about how to match your CV to job descriptions, and how to use your network to help you out with your CVs. So basically that you're not alone in creating your CV. So first we're going to start with formatting. So as for contact info, this part is pretty straightforward. You need 4 main things: your name, your phone number, an email, and LinkedIn. Outside of those 4 main things would only be if your specific profession asks you for other contact information. Otherwise, this is the standard. LinkedIn is not a must, but at this point, if you don't have LinkedIn, it's a very, very good idea to create a LinkedIn. It's easy to create. You can create it within an hour or less or more, depending how detailed you get. But it definitely makes you look much more professional if you have a LinkedIn. But for sure, you need the other 3. And this just goes at the top of your resume like everybody has. So no surprise there. As for the organization of your resume, so this is how I do mine, and this is what I've always been taught to do, is your best stuff first, which means that, let's say it's whatever section is most impressive about you professionally. So let's say your education is most impressive. Let's say that you went to Harvard University or Oxford University, 2 universally very well-known schools. That's probably something that you're going to want to put at the top of your resume. Why? Because when you have managers or anyone reading it, you want to captivate them and engage them right away. You basically want what is most important to what is least important, or should I say most impressive to least impressive about you. If your volunteer work is the most impressive thing about you, you just have some outstanding volunteer work that is really going to catch the eye and is going to want to make people learn more about you, put your volunteer work section first. Of course, all of this after contact info. If your experience is the most impressive thing about you, then put that first. That's typically what is the most impressive thing about folks on their CVs. So that usually will go right under the contact info. As for the section, a lot of people have sections about skills. When it comes to it's this extra section of skills, I really only recommend you put that in there if you have noteworthy skills. For example, certifications or trainings. If you put in that skills section, driven or multitasker or great at working with teams, I don't recommend putting that stuff in there because it's quite fluffy content. If you want to prove that you are good at all those things, within the content of your CV, you should prove all of those things with experience. And I'm going to talk about how you can make the CV more meaningful, but that skills section should really only be used if you have skills that are desired or that are outstanding or that are going to separate you from the rest. Like I mentioned, certificates, trainings, that sort of stuff. I would stay away from you deciding kind of what you are. Stay away from driven, patient, team player. Those are all okay to show off within the experience, within the body of your CV. Design. So the design of your CV, this part could get a little bit tricky because it really does depend on your profession. I do have in the next slide some examples of what designs could look like and what structure could look like. But you and I, we all really need to know, excuse me, what our industry expects. Like every industry has a certain CV format, for example, a marketing CV is going to look different from an engineering CV. It's going to look different from a graphic design CV. It'll look different from like finance, or for example, or a teacher's CV. All of these formats are going to look different. So you actually need to figure out what is the most common structure and format for my profession. There are CVs that I'm going to show you next that are kind of safe bets that you can use. But if you want to take that extra step for your CV, you need to do some research. And the research could include the following stuff. You can go on LinkedIn. There are plenty of CVs listed on LinkedIn. There's plenty of people who do not list their CVs on LinkedIn, but there's people who do list their CVs on LinkedIn. So I would check that out and do some digging on LinkedIn with people who look credible within your profession and see what their CVs look like. If you're the current company you're working at, or if you are currently a Masa intern, for example, you can ask your current company, ask your coworkers, hey, do you have any insights for my CV? I want to improve my CV. What do you recommend? If you're doing your internship, you can ask your coworkers, you can ask your supervisor, even if you're not in an internship, hey, what CV insights do you recommend? Can I see your CV? Would you be open to letting me view your CV? You can look at online resources. At the end, I'm going to share with you guys some online resources you can use that'll give you some great resume templates of all sorts of positions that'll give you different ideas for the types of design you can use. Once again, when you choose a design, I would first understand what your industry looks for. Some of them can be flashier and some of them need to be a lot more humble and traditional. And then of course, also using your network, which I'll explain in a second. But what is interesting is that most of us actually have never seen other CVs. We've really only seen our own CV. So a lot of the time we don't actually know what our industry CVs look like. And so the idea here is to get your hands on a CV, and the higher ranking the position, the more senior the person can be in your profession, that you can get your hands on their CV, the more valuable it's going to be, because then you know exactly what the most ideal CV for someone in your position looks like. When it comes to using your network to try and get your hands on a CV or to get some insights about your CV, you can reach out to friends, that, of course, that you trust and respect that are in your profession. You can reach out to, another good one is parents of friends of yours, because a lot of parents are in senior level positions, or older brothers or older sisters. You can reach out to just general connections within your network of people who would let you check out their CV, so you can take a look at what it looks like, and who would be willing to give you some tips about the CV. And then at the end of the presentation, I'm going to give you guys a unique networking strategy that can let you connect with people outside of your network, because maybe you don't have anyone in your network that can serve you, that can give you insights or can provide a CV. So then you have to go outside of your network. And how do you do that? What's the best way to give yourself the opportunity to actually see the CV of someone in your profession who's outside of your network? Plus also creating a new contact, plus also creating a potential job opportunity, plus also creating a learning experience about your industry. So all of that in a nutshell, I'll give you guys a strategy that could work to help you guys get there. I am going to just pause for a second and ask, does anybody have questions regarding format? Yes. Yeah, go ahead and just ask.
Okay, so I want to ask about the LinkedIn. If I write it, should I write, like the Facebook, my name on LinkedIn is Da, or should I write the link itself to my profile?
Oh, great question. So in other words, like on the CV itself, what should that link look like?
Exactly.
Yeah, so if you go on LinkedIn, once you create a profile, I can't remember the section, but there is a section in LinkedIn that you can literally ask for the shortened link. And so LinkedIn will provide you like a very clean, short link. And that link that LinkedIn provides you, that's what you include in your CV.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. And other questions?
Yeah, a quick question here.
Sure.
Is there a difference in the format here in Israel versus, say, back in the United States? Or are these principles hold true globally that you're speaking of?
Good question, Alex. These are universal principles. So it's based on your profession. So the idea of putting what is most impressive about you first is a universal thing. Like if your education is best, if your volunteering is best, if your experience is best, that's how it should be laid out. And then also looking into your profession. So I wouldn't be concerned about Israel versus any other country. I would be concerned about what does your profession's format look like.
Thank you.
Sure. Other questions about formatting?
I have two small questions.
Sure.
I was told today that you don't need to put in city, like I'd written down my name, phone number, email, and city. Is that not a good idea to put city where you live?
Yeah, it's unnecessary to put city.
Okay, and the second question was, next to education, I was told that you don't need to put in the dates that you studied, as if you don't want to give away your age, whether you're too young or too old. I don't know if that's acceptable. I've always had dates in there.
That's another good question. I don't have a clear answer to it. I don't think it's going to make or break anything. I would recommend the dates though, because then it shows if it was like a full degree, if it was half a degree, because if you just put the university on there or wherever you went to school without the dates, then then you could have gone there for just 1 year or 2 years. Whereas if you put the dates on there, you're saying that like this was a full degree.
Okay.
So I would recommend dates just because it's more honest, but like I said, it's not going to make or break anything. So I wouldn't be concerned about it, but I would recommend dates.
Great,
Hope that helps.
Thank you.
Other questions for formatting?
Yes, I wrote in the chat, but I was just wondering, because you were saying, like for the organization, like if your college was like what you want to highlight or whatever you want to highlight goes first within the those categories, should those should be chronological, correct? Or should like say like past experiences, should those like the ones you want to highlight, does it have to be chronological, or is that not necessary?
It should be chronological for sure. Within the section itself, like if we're talking about experience, within experience, it should be chronological.
So even if like a few years ago, like one that like, okay, so for now, like I'm in Masa currently teaching English, and then that really doesn't have to do much with like what I'm trying to do in the future. It should still be first, even though the other experiences that I've had pertain more to what I want to do, if that makes sense.
It does. So yeah, it still should go first. You know, if, for example, if you were doing some other piece of work simultaneously with that, you could leave that out and just leave the other piece of work that's more relevant. But, you know, if you're going to be here, I think usually the teaching programs are like 10 months, right?
Yes, they are. Yeah.
Yeah. And so, you know, you can't kind of have this 10-month gap. And so you can just it could just be a one-liner. You basically don't make it a big deal. You kind of say, you know, I was here in Masa teaching English. You know, this is the impact that I've made. And then it could be a one line. And then for the rest of the stuff, you could really give it the meat, and you can really give it the meaning, so that, you know, when you're leading the reader, they're not stuck on that first part. They read, you know, though that one sentence, and then they move on to the rest. So put it in there, but just don't make a big deal out of it. You know, make it like one line.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate it.
With MITF, with the teaching fellow, that technically we are registered as volunteers for that. Could that actually go in like volunteer and then be highlighted as like a large, big chunk of volunteering to like make it more
That's a really good idea.
impressive? And then like the professional experience could go elsewhere.
Yeah, but the only thing then with that is, like, let's say, you know, you're applying to jobs in 3-4 months from now, there's going to be this gap in your experience section, right? Because,
right.
I mean, unless you're putting volunteering first, then you're going to have like this gap in your experience section where it's going to look like you were out of work for like 6-7 months. And then maybe they'll catch it in the volunteering section, but it won't look as good. So if you're putting experience first, like above volunteering, then I would put it in the experience section. Like whichever section you're putting first, I would put it in that section.
Thank you so much.
Of course. Other questions regarding that?
Yeah, I've got a question. So, like I've just finished high school and I'm on a gap year before college, before university. So what would highlight as like my most achievable thing that I would want to put first on my CV? Like I do have an internship at the moment.
So the question is, you just finished high school and you want to know like what would be the most impressive thing to put on your CV first?
Yeah, I do have an internship, so that.
Yeah, I mean, you know, ask kind of put yourself in a manager's shoes. If they were to look at your CV, what would they like to see most? Like, what do you think is most impressive? And it could be that if you're just graduating high school, you know, and you haven't worked a whole lot, like you don't have that much to go off of. And then if you're just graduating high school and all you really have is an internship, then you might want to expand out your volunteering, expand out your education, try and see if you have any sort of certificates or trainings that you can talk about. But there it's a trickier spot because you have less to work with. But yeah, definitely if the internship is like your main piece of work experience, then that should be the first thing you mention. And then also make it like chunkier. You know, if you don't have too much else, then make that internship piece like 3-4 lines of what you did.
Okay, thank you.
Of course. Other questions regarding formatting? All right, so let's move on to the next piece. So here, Anna, you might recognize these CVs here. So Anna recently, Anna, who's a participant here, these are two of her CVs, the one in the middle and the one on the right. And she did a workshop on CVs for our Russian community. And so the reason I'm showing these here, by no means is this what yours should look like, and is this the extent of what a CV could look like. I just want to provide samples of what CVs could look like. All of these are perfectly okay. On the left-hand side, you have more of a humble, traditional format. In the middle, you have one that's a little bit more colorful. You have a picture. It's a little bit more flashy. And then on the right, you have one that is in between both of them. Guys, by the way, don't look at the content of it. That stuff I haven't looked through. Just look at I'm just showing this for the design, just for the structure of it, not for the content within it. So I'm not sure exactly how it reads within it. I just wanted to show the design of each one. But I have seen many different types of looking CVs. So this is how they can look. And so it's important for you to know what's acceptable, what isn't. You know, if your profession is okay with pictures and colors, then that's okay. The middle one might be more so for marketing jobs. On the left-hand side, it might be more so for business development or finance that tend to be a little bit more straight edge. So that's what I'm saying. You have to know what your profession looks like or what your profession expects, but these are a few different types. And then when I send you guys the resources at the end, in those resources, you can see a whole bunch of different designs that you can use. But like I said, it's not one is wrong or right, it really depends on your profession. And like I said, jump in anytime if you have questions. So now I do want to chat a little bit about hard skills versus soft skills. I'm going to explain what each one is and the importance of one. But can anyone enlighten us or share with the group as to what they believe hard skills are?
Microsoft Excel.
Correct, Alex. That would be one hard skill. Hard skills are basically skills that are based on rules, that are technical, that are scientific, that are replicable. Examples of them would be video editing, Microsoft Excel, for as Alex mentioned, programming, financial modeling. Something a little bit more outside the box is operating a tractor or machinery. Hard skills are things you either can do or cannot do. It's binary. It's either yes or no. So soft skills, who can share with the group what soft skills are?
Teamwork.
Teamwork, exactly. That would be definitely a type of soft skill. Languages actually would be a hard skill. Who said languages? Doesn't matter, but languages would actually be a hard skill because you either know how to do it or you don't. There's not really like, it's not a guessing game as to whether you know it or not. Soft skills are, as mentioned, they are things that are based on behavior, on attitude, on experience, on intuition. Some examples could be, as mentioned, teamwork, creativity, collaboration, which is similar to teamwork, persuasion, leadership, interpersonal skills. These are all soft skills that are much less measurable if you don't know the person. Hard skills are a lot more measurable. Why do I want to identify what these skills are? Because then the question is, what's better for a CV? What do you guys think? Hard skills or soft skills are better for a CV, or are they the same?
A combination of them.
Combination?
Hard skills.
Hard skills?
Soft
What else?
skills.
Hard skills, very good, Iran.
Hard skills.
I want to hear, what are some of the other votes?
Hard skills.
I feel like soft skills would come through more in like your description within the experience portion of it.
So that's an interesting point. So I'll give you guys the answer is you want more hard skills on your CV. You want, and I'm going to explain the benefit of soft skills, and for those that don't have that many hard skills, because some jobs come naturally with more hard skills than soft. Don't worry, we have solutions for that. But I'm just going to talk about why hard skills are important. Hard skills are important because they are measurable skills. You either can or cannot do them. And what happens with measurable skills is that when it comes to a recruiter or a manager or just an HR rep, it's a safer bet for them to go with someone that has more hard skills because they are measurable skills. They know what that employee is capable of doing. Whereas soft skills, they may be a great pick, but it's a lot more difficult to determine what they can and cannot do. So it's less of a safe bet. Hard skills, the more hard skills an employee has on their CV, the safer of a pick they are to bring into their company. Now, and I'm going to talk about, like I said, how if you don't have that many hard skills and you're more soft skill based, how to still be able to use them in your CV. But I do want to mention that soft skills are extremely important when you have the job. Once you are on the job, that's where your soft skills come into play. Even more so that it actually people who have better soft skills tend to excel more in their work. So, or more in their job, and tend to actually be promoted faster. So the hard skills are your base. They get you into the actual job itself. And then to actually excel in the job, you most definitely want to develop your soft skills, because that's like we've mentioned, your teamwork, your emotional intelligence, your leadership, your interpersonal skills, your drive, your patience, all of these almost like invisible skills that really go a long way. And the thing is with soft skills, you don't know someone's soft skills. You can't measure them until you've worked with someone for a while. After you've worked with someone for a while, then you can say, yeah, he's very strong in A, B, and C. But on the CV, you just don't know because you don't know that person. So soft skills are a tougher bet. So I believe the next slide is, this might answer some questions about hard versus soft. So how to bring more meaning to your CV. So anyway, whether they're hard skills, I'm going to read these questions in a second, but anyway, whether they're hard skills or soft skills, you should ask these questions at every point of your CV. At literally every sentence, you should ask all of these questions. Why is this meaningful? Why is this important? What is the benefit in knowing this? What does this tell the reader? Will the reader understand what I really do, or what I really did, or what I really do? Will a human resources representative understand how to apply this skill or experience on the job, or is it too general? I wrote here, no fluff, prove it. Meaning that if you want to say anything about yourself, prove it through an experience. If, as I mentioned before, if you want to say that you're a team player or multitasker, what I recommend you do is, you can say those things. Those are important things to have, but say it through the experience. I wouldn't just list them. I would prove them through the experience so that the reader can pick it up in that way. And so doing this is very helpful, because if you're asking these questions, especially with soft skills, you create a measurement. You know, if you can say why it's meaningful, if you can say why it's important, if you can say what the benefit is, then there is a way for the reader to actually measure that ability and measure that skill. And on the next slide, I'm going to give you guys a sentence that I've seen often in some of these CV workshops and some of the CVs I've reviewed, where it's like a very general kind of blanket statement. And then I'm going to share how you can flush it out and make it more detailed with all of this. I see a question in here. Would you suggest listing soft skills quite literally, or dress them up in the experience they relate to? You read my mind, but would say teamwork did XYZ, or worked in a team, blah, 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 where it is more hidden. You don't want anything to be hidden. The idea here is you want to be black and white with your CV. No BS, no fluff. You want the person to read it and say, I know exactly what this person did. I know what they're capable of doing, and I know why that activity is important for the company they worked for. I'm going to give you an example in a moment regarding what I just said. At this point, though, I just want to pause. Does anyone else have, I guess a question came in. How well should you know a language before it goes on the CV? Ooh, that's a nice one. Good question there. I mean, look, if you just have to be clear about how well you know the language. So, for example, like I put Hebrew as basic, you know, like my Hebrew really isn't that great. So I just put Hebrew basic. You know, I speak Spanish. But there was a point where my Spanish wasn't as good. So I was putting Spanish as semi-fluent, and then I was putting English as native tongue. Now my Spanish is quite fluent, and I even teach in Spanish. So now I just put like fluent in Spanish, and I put native tongue English, and I put Hebrew is basic. You could leave Hebrew off. I mean, the question is, would it be better to leave Hebrew off if your Hebrew is basic? If you're in Israel, I would put Hebrew is basic. That way it just looks better, honestly. Like if you don't know the alphabet, then yeah, you know, like leave Hebrew off. But if you can get around, if you know how to order a shawarma, if you can read here and there, like put Hebrew as basic. It will look better. If you put Hebrew as basic, no one is expecting you to know how to speak Hebrew. They're just going to be like, you don't really know Hebrew. But it does look a little bit better. Questions thus far about skills and crafting a more meaningful CV?
I actually have one. Well,
yeah.
I need to do a personal statement for my CV. Actually, I've been looking into CVs for medical school for quite a while, and everybody kind of open up with a personal statement. And I think that's the place to focus on soft skills, right? So do you have any tips for that?
You said on personal statement?
Yeah. For applying for residency and other medical positions, people usually open with a personal statement of why they chose medicine, what have they been doing on medical school, how does it fit with their goals, things like that. But do you have any tips for that specifically? I think that's the most soft skill driven portion of my CV.
I see. So in that case, then the personal piece, I'm going to be very honest with you, Victor, I don't have as much experience in tailoring a personal piece because I've never had to write them. And I haven't worked with many other people or many other CVs that have had to write them. My intuition would say that it would be a combination of hard skills and soft skills. But what I would really recommend, because the answer I'm giving you is like, I don't know if it's that tangible for you, is try and find someone who has written it. Like use your network, use your sources to see if you can get your hands on a CV that for someone who's in a similar position or someone who's gone through that, and see what their paragraphs look like. So then you know, and if you can look at a few of them, it's gonna be quite helpful. But that personal piece is more so coming off of who you are as a person, because the rest of it is going to say what you can do and what you cannot do and what your skills and abilities are. And as you mentioned, it is more soft skill based. So that's something where you do want to maybe show a little bit more drive and a little bit more of your personality and a little bit more of your ambition mixed in with some hard skills. So that one is actually a bit of a tough section, I must admit, to the CV, because there is a dance and there is an art to it where you want to make it a little bit more personal. You want to show off a little bit more about who you are and tell your story in a way that also includes your hard skills. But because it's with an industry that I haven't worked with, I would highly recommend that you look on LinkedIn, you look with your network and see if you can get your hands on CVs that have done exactly what you're trying to do.
All right, thanks.
Yeah. Other questions?
Yeah.
I have a general question.
Yeah.
Should we mention somewhere in our CV references, even if they didn't ask us? What do you think about references?
I would not include references. If they need references, they'll ask you for references.
Okay, thank you.
I have a question.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I think my information mainly, it's mostly soft skills. It's like, I'm a lawyer.
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of obvious that I can do research, I can do like legal writing. I shouldn't put that in the CV, right?
No, you totally should. If you've had a certain amount of legal writing hours or certain training in legal writing or certain experiences with legal writing, then most definitely put it in there. If there's a certain amount of research you've done or certain projects with research you've done, then...
But isn't it better, like, instead of putting in like a section skills, putting inside the experiences, like did research on that, this and that during that position?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying, is not to do the the skills section, is to put the skills within the CV itself in the experience section.
Okay,
so
I'm thinking like, usually on my LinkedIn profile, I write 1 or 2 phrases on each position of stuff I've done within that position. Like, should the CV be like that also, or?
Yeah, definitely. You do want to phrase it here. I'll show you the next slide, and maybe it will help, Julia, and let me know if it does.
No, also because the thing is, I've heard that here in Israel is better to have like a 1-page CV.
Thank you for asking that.
And it's very difficult to do all that in 1 page.
So, like I said, you're doing law, correct?
Yeah, law and international relations, kind of like.
So, you need to know if more than 1 page is allowed. The general rule, it's not just for Israel, in the United States for sure, and also I lived in Spain, and for sure in Spain, 1 page is like the standard rule. Like, your CV should be 1 page always, unless you know that your industry allows for more than that. So if you know that your industry allows for 1.5 pages or 2 pages,
assuming it doesn't.
Okay. What's that?
Assuming it doesn't, how do you put all those descriptions in 1 page?
It takes work. It's hard. It's hard. It's a hard thing to do. You need to sit down, and you have to basically decide which experiences you are going to cut out of there. And you need to, what I would do is I would list out all of the experiences that you have, and then literally start prioritizing those experiences. Like, put it on a separate page. You can do it on an Excel. You can do it on a notepad, and just list them all out. And if you have 60 experiences or 60 different things, then highlight the top 40. And then out of those top 40, then see which are the top 20. And then maybe with those 20, then you can include them in there. But you're going to have to make cuts if you really have that much on there. Assuming you only have 1 page, you're gonna have to make cuts. And yes, you might say, well, then they won't know all of my experience. Then you will have to craft it in a way where you can try to include some of the other things in there, but you're going to leave stuff out. You're gonna have to make cuts if it really does need to be 1 page. But make sure you double check it, because then you're only making it 1 page when really a lot of people in your profession actually use 2 pages.
Yeah, can I ask a related question, sort of?
Yeah.
And it's actually related to LinkedIn. What is your view on posting bullet points under your experience on your LinkedIn page? Like, I ask this because, some of us might be applying to, say, different fields and industries where we tailor our CV to the specific job. And so the fear is that if a recruiting manager sees our, generic LinkedIn CV, let's call it, and then they see something else that's different, or they say this isn't the candidate I thought they were, like, is it that much more beneficial to be putting out bullet points on your LinkedIn page, or is it best not to? Like, what do you have to say? And I don't know if you're going to do a whole LinkedIn session one of these days, but just something that came to mind here.
That's a good question as well. So on LinkedIn, typically what I would suggest is LinkedIn, you have the ability to really, it can be much longer. So you can list all of your experiences. What the CV does, so LinkedIn you can list is like the full story, right? Like, let's say like everything you put on your LinkedIn on a CV might actually be 2-3 pages worth, right? But on the CV, what you're doing is you're highlighting it and giving them a narrative that is relevant to them. So in that case, they might look at a CV and be like, look at all of these things. This CV looks different than the LinkedIn, but everything on your CV should be in your LinkedIn, but your LinkedIn will just have extra. So it should be, it shouldn't harm you, because your LinkedIn should just have everything on there. So then no matter what you apply to, it's fine, because whether you're highlighting, certain marketing skills or you're highlighting certain video skills, all those skills are listed anyway in a longer story on your LinkedIn. Your CV is just customizing the narrative and giving them the relevant information.
So your answer is yes, post bullet points under your experience section in LinkedIn and put everything on there.
Yep, and put more on there. Mm-hmm.
Put more on. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, yeah. And I mean, you could put bullet points, or it doesn't, like, formatting wise, it doesn't have to be bullet points. You could just put, like, I think, yeah, it doesn't have to be bullet points. You can just have them be like sentences and just space them out. So yeah, but it could be a much fuller story on LinkedIn.
Okay. Thanks.
Yeah. All right. So maybe these might answer some other questions. So this is a statement that I've seen, this type of statement I've seen on CVs a handful of times. And it's just, and this is actually a statement that I pulled out of a CV from another workshop that I've done. And it's just a very general statement. And a lot of times people put these general statements, and on the following slide, I'm gonna give an example of what this statement could have looked like. But when you look at this statement, you know, first off, preparation of financial reports, you read it and you don't know why it's meaningful. You don't know what the benefit of doing financial reports are. You don't know what type of financial reports they were. You don't know what type of programming they use. When you read this statement, you actually don't know what the person is able to do. It's too broad, and an HR rep won't know how to apply this skill or experience in any job. So then when I asked her, you know, what type of reports did you do? She mentioned that she was doing expense reports. And so then I suggested that it could look something like this: assisted in preparing weekly company expense reports using Excel modeling to identify opportunities for saving revenue. So it's just very clear and very concise as to what you did, why it's important, what the benefit was. Questions regarding that? Okay. So now we are going to look at uncovering skills that you may already have. And this one is a good one because a lot of times you think you only have, you know, skills 1 through 7, but in reality, you actually have skills 1 through 7 plus another 7 skills that you didn't give yourself credit for. So here are some tips as to how to uncover more skills within yourself. First is look at all your experiences one at a time, and then ask yourself for each of those experiences, what are all the skills and abilities I learned from this experience? What skills and abilities did it require? What skills and abilities did it require for me to do this job? And the idea here is to really take the time to actually reflect. This does take a little bit of time, but you need to dig within your experiences. Look closer. Don't look so surface level at your experiences. Try to get in there and see what else you can pull out of there. Because then once you pull out other skills and experiences, or other skills and abilities, then you can make the experiences that you list a whole lot more meaningful. You can give a whole lot more meaning to the content that you already have in there. Then another way that you can flush out some skills and abilities is asking friends and family. So you can just straight up ask them, what skills and abilities do you believe I have? And the idea here is that others can see in you things that you cannot see in yourself. And so it's getting that outside perspective to give you a perspective that you can't have. And another piece of this is to give your CV to trustworthy people to identify skills in you. And what I mean by that is you can give your CV to somebody else. And an interesting exercise is to give your CV to somebody else, have them read it over, and then ask them, based on the experiences you see in my CV, what skills and abilities did I miss within myself that are not mentioned here? Because they might read over some experiences and they might say, hey man, hey gal, you list experience 1, 2, 3, but you didn't mention that you can do this, this, and that. And I bet you that those skills and abilities come with this experience. And so it's just something that you didn't realize you even had, because you didn't see it in yourself, but somebody else saw it within that experience. So that's a cool exercise to do. And the last piece says CV feedback and review. That's just straight up giving your CV to somebody who you trust, who you respect, who is a credible person, and ask them, can you review my CV? For example, and like try and get yourself to the most credible, respectful person you can to review your CV. For example, with my CV, I have a good friend of mine. She is high up in a marketing firm and she's great with words. She's very concise. She sees CVs all the time. And so I said, hey, Adriana, would you mind looking over my CV? She's a sweetheart. And she said, no problem. I'll take the time to look it over. And so she literally went in there and corrected my CV. She improved it. She gave me better vocabulary. She gave me better sentence structure. And so it's just using the resources and the network you have to improve your CV and to not try and figure it all out on your own. Like, do the best you can, and then use the people around you, use your resources. If you know someone smart who's great at CVs, use them. Be like, hey, can you correct this for me? And, you know, if you need to take them out to lunch, great. Adriana, my friend, was nice enough that she doesn't need anything. She's like, I'm happy to do it for you. So looking within, and then also using your friends and fam to help you out and finding new skills within you, and also giving you feedback. Questions about this piece? Okay. This part is pretty straightforward. A lot of you guys already know this piece, which is customization, and that is matching your CV to the job description, to the type of job that you are applying for. Now, there's a couple things to this. Number one is, of course, you know, if you're doing the locked and loaded rapid fire method where you're applying to 70+ positions, you can't be, you know, customizing every single CV. So what you should do is you should check out what the majority of those types of positions are looking for, understand what the average is, and most likely a lot of organizations for that type of work are going to be looking for the same skills and experiences, so you can create a blanket CV for that type of job. If you are applying for a few different kinds of positions, maybe it all falls within marketing, but you're applying for 3 different types of jobs within marketing, then you will create 3 different types of CVs according to what those jobs are looking for. So you are customizing the CV according to the job type. And I wrote here, higher priority positions require more care, which means, and this is more of a personal decision, but if there are some jobs that you really, really want, like let's say, you know, you're applying to 100 jobs, and I say 100 because when you apply to places, it really is a numbers game. So the more places you apply to, the better results you are likely to have. And, you know, if you have 10, that would be amazing. If you got those jobs, then I would take the time to tailor those top 10 CVs and customize them as best you can according to that job description. So the jobs that are most important to you, give those CVs a little bit more love. And yeah, it does take time, for sure. It does take time. But you know, if it's for a job you really want, the effort is worth it. Any questions here?
Semi-related, just out of curiosity, only because you mentioned it. I know I missed your last networking session, you know, on that topic. But
sure.
You think about the locked and loaded versus the, I guess, you know, network your way to a job. And I mean, does the locked and loaded method even work? Is it really actually a numbers game, or is that just going to take one down a rabbit hole where you end up spending more time submitting applications that never get seen by anyone more than a computer?
So the locked and loaded method does work. The thing is that when you are looking for jobs, there are a few different avenues you should tap into. So, you know, I'm not great with LinkedIn, but if you understand LinkedIn, there's a whole system, there's a whole strategy for finding job opportunities just through LinkedIn. And then networking is a whole nother avenue that you can find job opportunities, how to network and create jobs there. And then a third one is through the rapid fire, locked and loaded, send your CV out to 70 plus people. You're using all of these avenues to try and find a job. And the numbers game 100% works. And there are definitely job boards out there. I'm not sure what their names are, but I can find them for you guys. If you're interested, just send me an email and ask me. But for example, like Nefesh B'Nefesh, which is for those that are outside of the US, Nefesh B'Nefesh is the program that helps you with your Aliyah. And, you know, when I was looking for work, I sent them my resume, and then they, on my behalf, posted my CV on a handful of job boards. And so getting it out there, getting more eyes on your CV, 100% helps. But it's so to answer your question, Alex, is you should be using all the different avenues of job acquisition, from LinkedIn to networking to the rapid fire method to also customizing your CVs to the jobs that you are more interested in. And I say all that, and it takes work. Like when you look for work for real, like when you really try hard, it is a second job. I'm not going to sugarcoat that. It is a second job, but it's worth it. That's part of the, you know, that's part of the career game. That's part of the process. And once you get that job, then you don't have to do this stuff anymore. But, you know, your job is a big deal. So it's worth it to put in that effort and go hard at finding a job. So then when you land it, you know, now you have a job that you desire. I hope that answered the question.
Yeah, it answered it. I'll shoot you a text message. I have follow up to that.
Do you want to ask it? Do you think it's relevant to the group, or is it more personal?
Personal.
Okay, cool. Thank you for that. Yeah, and guys, if you have any other questions regarding, because we're nearing the end of the chat or of the workshop. So if you have questions regarding some other slide that pop up, like other questions that just surface, feel free to ask. It's okay if it's not like about the slide that we're on. So this last piece right here is an interesting one, but it is a networking strategy that can also help with your CV. And so if you were at I gave a workshop a couple weeks ago, and I'm gonna, if you're just reading this, it might not be so clear. I'm gonna explain what it is. But a couple weeks ago, I gave a networking workshop. And so if you were at that, it's using that networking strategy to also help with your CV. And so the idea here is, if there is nobody in your network that can assist you with your CV insights, or that can share their CV with you, this is something that you can do to try and get your hands on a CV of someone in your profession without knowing them. In other words, get your hands on a CV of someone who is outside of your network. And the way that you do that is, the first step would be ask within your network if they know anyone who is in your profession. So you would reach out to Dan, who is someone who's in your network, and you'd say, hey, Dan, I would love to speak with someone in so-and-so profession. And the approach and the messaging that you would have, and this messaging is worded for the connection they give you, but you would just format it to actually ask the person in your network, and you would say, I want to learn from your experience in this industry and learn how to best navigate this field. In addition, I would like to learn more about what is expected on a CV for this profession. Would you be open to speaking one of these days? So this is a message that you can say to the person you're referred to, and then you would format it accordingly to the person in your network. And this is how I talk. You can word this message however you want, but the idea here is that you are reaching out to somebody to learn from their experience. And in creating the opportunity for that conversation, you create the space, you create the opportunity to ask for CV advice. So you're not reaching out to someone in your profession or a referral in your profession just to ask for CV advice. You're not asking for a job. The meat and potatoes of the ask is is, can I learn from you? Can you help me navigate the field that I'm interested in? And so once they say, sure, I would be happy to share with you whatever you want to know about my field, within that conversation, once you've selected the time, it's going to be at 6 p.m. on Tuesday. What that conversation looks like then is the following. So number one, since you're asking to learn about their experience, yeah, my internet's still okay. Since you're asking to learn about their experience, then these are some questions you can ask. I would love to learn a bit more about how you got to where you are today and what your professional path may have looked like. How does your company come up with its initiatives, projects, programs? And also another piece of it, when it comes to asking about the CV, what is expected or looked for on a CV for this profession? How do you recommend I structure my CV? And so the idea here is that you're asking for learning insights and you're also asking for CV insights. Let me stop there and let's see, how many people can I actually see? Is this clear? Raise your, for those that are on camera, just so I can see it. And for those that are off camera, do the like a little clap or a little thumbs up if this is clear. Everyone just do one of these if this makes sense. Okay, cool. So a couple people didn't throw it up, which maybe they're just away from their computer, but that's the idea. So this actually creates a very interesting situation. It creates a very interesting situation because now you've created a few different things. Number one is you've created a new contact. Number two, you now have the potential to learn more about your industry from an industry professional. Number three, you are asking them for CV insights. And when you ask them for CV insights, there's a few things that can happen. Number one, they might say, I don't have that many tips for you regarding the CV. Fine. Then you at least gain the others, so it's not a waste of time. Number two could be, here are some things that you should highlight for our profession. And then number three, since you've now had a meaningful conversation with them, they can say, I'm happy to share my CV with you. What's your email? I can share my CV with you. And there's a fourth bonus in having this type of conversation. At the beginning of the conversation, what's going to happen? They're going to ask you about you. They're going to say, who are you? What's your background? Because this is the first time you're meeting them because you're a referral. They're a referral. In that section, when they ask, who are you? You just created an informal interview. You now have 60 seconds to talk about yourself. So prepare yourself for a 60-second informal interview where you verbally talk about who you are, where you come from, what's your background, what's your profession. So that, plus these meaningful questions, which can actually be very fun for people you speak with because you're asking them about their successes, and talking about your own success is a very exciting thing to do. So you're giving them an engaging conversation. Now you basically created this unique opportunity where they can say, hey, you know what? Send me your CV. I'll review it. They might say, pass over your CV and I'm going to forward it to somebody else. They might say, you know what? I have a job opportunity here. Your background sounds interesting. Or I know someone who has an opportunity. So a lot of really interesting stuff can happen in this conversation.